What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortified Life podcast. We are passionate about developing a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. Every single week, we have the opportunity to bring on coaches, authors, speakers, business owners that are also passionate about putting God back in business. It's no different this week. As you all know, longtime listeners of the platform, we are excited to bring you different types of episodes. And so today is going to be one of our tools and resources episodes where we deep dive with one of our guests on the types of things that are out there that can help you in your day to day life and business. Before we dive into our tool and resource for today, let me introduce our guest, Dan Anderson. Dan is a battle tested, I love that, battle tested entrepreneur, 2-decade pastor, and a trusted advisor to business owners, executives, and high impact teams. As CEO of Kingdom Way and executive team member for FCCI, Dan equips leaders to build contagious cultures, high trust teams, and organizations that win where it matters most. Over 35 years, he's become a sought after mentor, speaker, and coach known for fusing marketplace grit with spiritual wisdom to drive breakthrough results. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Fortified Life podcast, Dan Anderson. Dan, what's going on, sir?
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you, Jason, and everybody watching now live or later. So excited to be with you and honored. Thank you, Jason, for the invite, man.
Absolutely. Dan, we had a really cool conversation before the time of this recording, just getting to know each other. And folks, I got to tell you, the Lord is really moving in a lot of different initiatives that Dan is working on. But Dan is in our conversation. And what I love about doing these tools and resources episodes is a lot of people, we love hearing store origin stories and we love hearing how people overcame, but especially in just the economy and the business
Yeah.
climate and where we are today. People also love hearing, hey, what's something that I could do to either gain a competitive advantage or help me work more efficiently or give me a breakthrough? And one thing that came out in our conversation, Dan, is the different types of assessment tools that you have. So we'll talk about that and then we'll wrap at the end. So folks, as tools, tests aren't the only thing Dan does, obviously. But Dan, let's talk a little bit about a few of the assessments that you have that you go about to serve your customers. I think we said we'd start out with two. You've got a life assessment and then a prioritized leader assessment. So walk us through the purpose of those and how you use them.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. First of all, if you don't mind, I'd love just to take a minute or two to talk about why these are so important. Is that okay
Yeah,
with you?
I love it. It's like Simon Sinek, start with why.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to realize because we just jump into the tool and we'll miss the power of it. Because as brothers, I know you do a lot of coaching and speaking yourself and pour into the lives of leaders like I do. And one question that comes up often is, Dan, what do you coach executive leaders around? I've coached people from startups to people, CEOs running $8 billion companies, and it's really interesting, and you probably found this to be true as well. Though a lot of times maybe they come to you because they want to work on their business or increase their productivity or profitability, inevitable always goes back to productivity personally or spiritual disciplines or emotional management or self-awareness or blind spots. It's all these personal areas of a leader's life that's holding them back or that they haven't quite identified to fully leverage step into their identity yet.
Mm,
And so that's one reason is it reveals all of that because you cannot be a great leader unless you have these capitals personally in order, which one of the assessments talks about. So that's one reason. And another is that I think people, entrepreneurs, just need simple systems
mm,
and processes that guide their, I call them MVPs, their mission, vision, values, and purpose, their culture to make sure they're aligned, and then their strategy. Because one of the seven essentials assessment we have talks about business strategy. And sorry about that, I forgot to turn that off. So that's the other thing. And then lastly, I think a lot of leaders need building blocks now to prepare them for the assignments that God's given them in the future. I've
Mm,
seen so many leaders who have not done this work ahead of time, and then when God gives them success. And so that's the setup for why these are so important. And so we could talk whichever one you want first, but the one is that I think is really important to start with that dovetails with the other is focusing on five key managing areas, domains of your life. We call the five capitals. Does that sound good with you?
yeah, it does five capitals. That
Yeah.
you grabbed my attention right there. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's go into that.
Yeah, so we have been a Five Capitals coach and part of the President's Club of Five Capitals coaching for several years. And we have some of the coaches on our team now that are part of Five Capitals coaching arm of what we do. And so this assessment actually it analyzes that very same thing that comes up over and over again in our coaching sessions with teams and individual leaders. And the five capitals are actually five areas that God calls us to manage. And there's an ideal priority of how God defines those for us that if you think about it, and you know this too, Jesus was a master builder. The Greek word for carpenter is tekton, which actually denotes more of a master builder, of a craftsman in every area of trade versus just a carpenter.
Mm,
And he's built the most successful enterprise the world has ever seen in the church. It's lasted 2,000 years, gone through all kinds of different change managements of leaders and every continent. Volunteer base is huge. And so Jesus knows what he's doing. And think of Peter when Peter was fishing all night and Jesus cast the net on the other side, Peter. Okay, we've been doing this. Leave the fishing to us, Lord, but because you say so, I'll do it. Jesus knew fishing better than Peter, even though he'd been doing it all of his life.
mhm.
So the point I'm trying to make here is it behooves us to follow God's order of priorities instead of our own
That's good.
because he knows so much better and he knows your business. He's the best consultant you could ever seek out, and he's free. So this particular assessment kind of analyzed the life, and this is the ideal priority. It's spiritual first. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and seek his kingdom first, and then all these things will be added to you. So that's the first capital is how are you doing growing your spiritual capital? And your spiritual disciplines and practices. Then relational capital is the second one. And
Mm,
that's love God with all your heart, soul, mind, love your neighbors, yourself. And that's a relationship with spouse, with kids, our friends, our colleagues, and our cohorts in our workplaces. And then the third one is physical capital. And that's one I'm focused on now. Maybe we'll talk more about that. I'm all busted up, got a shoulder injury. So I'm pouring a little bit, but that's not just sleep and physical activity. It's also managing your work rest rhythms to make sure that those are in balance and you're leading out of the overflow of that time and energy you're putting into it. And then it comes intellectual capital competencies that we work on. And then the finances follows all of these things. Jesus said, seek first his kingdom and all these things will be added to you. And so this assessment kind of analyzes in real time where you line up on your personal life in these five capitals with God's ideal of priority. And it
mm,
gives you a yellow, red, or green. And then typically what I do in a first coaching session with someone, hardly ever does everyone get it in ideal order,
right.
although it happens occasionally. But there's usually some that really surface. Let's say, like right now, I'm probably, if I were to do it, physical capital probably number one because I got three doctor's appointments this week, a PT appointment today, all these things. So it really is real time measurement. And so it's great to have conversations. Okay, so tell me what's going on there. Why is physical capital number one for you right now? And then we just talk about that. What's going on in their life? And it just surfaces a lot of things. Okay, tell me about the lowest one. Why do you think that one came in last out of the five in this season right now? A lot of things, and even that first conversation surfaces, and then there is a digital printout that's unique to that person's responses that will uncover blind spots in each area based on their response. And then there is a PDF worksheet guide that whether they continue on coaching with me and want to do work on one capital that's lowest, they want to beef that up, or if they want to get spiritual capital number one, if that's not it, we'll choose together which one we want to work on. But even if they want to do it on their own, there is a PDF guide that will give them specific questions, exercises, and guided coaching questions to work that through on their own if they don't want to continue on with me. But most of them do want to do the coaching piece. So I'll
Wow.
pause there because I don't want to just keep talking if there's anything
No,
about that.
there were a lot of gems there, Dan, and I think you might have done this with the coaching questions. A lot of times with a lot of different assessments, people go, okay, cool. I took it. Now what? And I love how you said when you're in sessions, you ask them a line of questions, plus they get the digital printout and then the workbook
Yeah.
because it gets to that action or what's the next right step or what's the next inspired idea to get you to take the step.
Exactly.
I love that. And so I just wanted you to give your thoughts on, and we'll talk about it with some of the other ones, just the power of having the coaching that comes alongside the assessment because
Yeah.
assessments bring awareness, but then if we don't act on what we're now aware of, we don't really get to reap the benefits. So just talk about just the power of the coaching. And you're starting to do that with the questions, but what have you seen happen in lives of a customer once they're in that coaching session or they're looking at the workbook and they go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the power of the coaching relationship is number one. This is my simple philosophy is ABC is I am going to accept that person wherever they are with no judgment.
Mm,
And that's a powerful gift in itself. And B is I'm going to believe in them and not just in them. More importantly, if they're a faith driven leader, the Spirit of God in them and the work that God is doing in their life. And the Holy Spirit is the third master coach in that conversation, which I love Christian coaching. And then C is I'm going to be their biggest champion.
hmm
They're never going to feel like they're alone facing anything. I'm with them and for them 100%. And a lot of my coachees, they'll call me off grid even, and I respond just because I have a heart to help them however I can. But
hmm
in the power of the coaching conversation is we have this simple process is it's very simple, but it's powerful at the same time is we want to help people. It's a gap acrostic, it's called. We want to help people identify their goals and outcomes in any or all dimensions of their life. And then A is awareness. To your
mm,
point, and this is where the assessments help, is it can increase the awareness. But when you're having a conversation with a coach who's listening with great curiosity and care for that person, as they especially as they understand how God's wired them through the coaching relationship over time, that coach, if they ask good questions, can bring out new awareness that they've never seen before or
mm,
new connections. And sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. And through the conversation, we discover new things. Let me give you an example. So I was working with someone recently who's really, this happens with a lot of people I coach, is they want to move from success to significance in kind of the second half of their life, and they don't know what that looks like. And so one of the questions that I've just discovered I start using lately that's really fun to ask is, okay, and this is no one would ask this, not many anyway, is so let's imagine, think about each decade of your life and what would be the book that you would want to write?
mm,
Not for the audience that you would want to cater to, but you would want to read for yourself. And just a question like that can spark something that they've never thought about before. And then all of a sudden, we then guiding that back to, well, how does this relate to your calling right now as you understand it, what God's calling you to the future?
mm,
And there's just new insights. And for example, like the life assessment, let's say relational capital reveals some struggles with conflict, and they give me an example of how that's playing itself out with a spouse or a child or a coworker. And I hear some things and I repeat back to them. So the good coaches, sometimes they'll take their coaching hat off and give some advice and teach, but they're trying to draw out what they're saying. And so I'll repeat back to them some of the things they've said. And then asking a simple question like, where else do you see this pattern surfacing in your life? And then they start Oh crap, I gotta think about this. Sometimes a good coach will drill you a little bit too,
Yeah.
but then they start seeing, oh yeah, I see this over here, and then they see this common thread that comes. And then where did that come from? Where did that start? Can you remember a specific occurrence that happened in your life where maybe an agreement that you made or a new view that you belief system you established by the world started that pattern? And they don't always have an answer to that, but sometimes they do. And then that gets really powerful because then you're identifying their shadow selves that they've created over time that's creating obstacles that's really holding them back from becoming all that God wants them to be. I know that was a long answer, but you could tell I'm excited about this because I've seen the breakthrough in so many people's lives that I just think every leader should have a coach.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Dan, I love it. So the five capitals: spiritual capital, relational capital, physical capital, intellectual, and financial. I know one question that came to mind, Dan, is a lot of times, especially we have our business and economics hat, everybody jumps immediately to financial. But
Yeah.
what is the reaction like when you have those other four? What has the conversation been like in real time? Oh, dude, I didn't realize, because we're so conditioned in the marketplace, capital, money, capital, and then they see these other four. What has that been like in terms of the eye opener for a lot of clients?
Yeah, for some that might be more seekers or haven't been walking with the Lord, that's a brand new concept. Just blow. Are you serious? And sometimes I got my master's in counseling. So before I was coaching, I did a lot of counseling. And sometimes the belief system is so ingrained, it's hard for them to overcome that. And so if you could give them a quick win, like in the
Mm,
profit area. So well, let's talk about this and let's see if we can give you some quick wins in this area. Then I want to come back to that. Would that be a good arrangement for you? And they say, okay, yeah. But then going through and showing them how, in different examples of scripture, how this plays itself out.
mm,
And even when it sometimes doesn't make business sense.
yeah.
For example, Jesus, I think of the night where he was up all night healing people, and all this huge crowd gathered for the first time in his public ministry, and his disciples are starting to get excited. He's like, yeah, this is what we signed up for. This is awesome. And but then the crowds are pressing in on him. His disciples say, where are you? Why are you out here praying right now? We got this huge crowd here. And then the cultural pressures of Jesus today was if you had a need that you could meet it, you'd have to meet it. So all these pressures, and then right in the middle of that, Jesus says, let's pick up our tents. We're going to the next city. Think of it in a business context. If you're thriving in one area and profits are coming in and things are really working, and all of a sudden we go into the spiritual capital, your assignment's different. And then God says you pick up and go, would you do it?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Jesus
that's
did it, and
good.
the disciples did it. But as a result, look where we are today. The rippling effects of that has been phenomenal. Going back to that is sometimes it's a little bit of a hard step for people to really believe and trust God that his ways is the best, but he
Mm,
always blesses obedience, and finances and prosperity is attached to that.
mm.
100% in my mind. Or we could be successful and just be totally off mission, and then we've missed our calling.
It's a good reality check, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love how you started to transition and intermingle the life assessment. So you used the five C's, but then you mentioned conflict, where that was showing up in their life. Talk about the where the life assessment comes into play. And I love that first example you gave where you paired it with the five C's. And now let's go into something a little bit more personal, like conflict. How do you deal with conflict? Or when you engage in conflict, what's your attitude typically like? So talk about the life assessment piece for a second.
Yeah. So are you talking about life assessment or the business side? You're talking about the
The
life still?
Yeah, the life. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times the conflict elements will come up in the relational capital questions in the assessment.
Okay.
And so the follow-up will be things like what's creating this conflict? What does that look like? How are you escalating that? And my lens is I always bring the biblical framework in mind if my client will allow me to do that. And so I ask questions about what have you done about this yourself first? Where have you seen yourself in your thinking or your interactions or your strategy or lack thereof contribute to this problem?
Got it.
And I'm going back to Matthew 7 then. Is you take the log out of your own eye before you take the speck out of of another's. And a
Hmm.
lot of time, if I can help them see their responsibility before God and try to reveal those blind spots and they course correct those with God's help and the tools that we'd help provide them in coaching, a lot of times the problems can solve themselves, or at least they're posturing themselves from a position of humility
Mm.
then and say, okay, they're going first and say, okay, this is what I've done to contribute to this. I'm on this. Hey, will you forgive me?
Yeah.
Ah, you don't do that in a business context, but you should. And then get that. And then, okay, so I'm going to work on this, but let's talk about the rest of that. How do you see that you can help with this? It's just conversations like that. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but hopefully it helps a little bit.
No, that absolutely did for sure. And I love the examples. I think I know we've been bouncing around a little bit, Dan,
It's
but
all right. I
from
love it.
now we incorporate the prioritized leader, and obviously leadership is huge, but you have the 5 C's, and now you get into leadership. So when you're working with whether the C-suite, Dan, or kind of your VP level or even middle management, what have been the conversations like when it comes from a leadership perspective?
Yeah, so the prioritized leader really helps that. And so we're a firm believer in assessment-based coaching,
Mm.
and we don't do an assessment for everything, but I think it just helps you get further faster
Yeah.
because that awareness piece and the coach understands the situation better. So the prioritized leader assessment is still based on 5 areas, and it's very similar to the 5 C's, the life assessment, the ones that we've went through, but it's 5 P's instead, and it's
Mm.
purpose. It's purpose. So this is your why. This
Hmm.
is I call them MVPs, your mission, vision, values, and purpose. People. So, people you hire, the culture, performance evaluations, and so on. And
Hmm.
then pace is some companies do this really well, like Apple. They'll have a time of development, and this follows kind of John 15, where you have a time of fruitfulness and then a time of
Mm.
pruning. And so there's this development and delivery TikTok rhythms. And Apple will take 4 to 6 months, develop the next best Apple Watch, for example. And then their
Hmm.
delivery times are almost the same time every month, every year.
Yeah.
And that's really important because I see so many businesses, number one, maybe when they're starting off or they're launching a new product, they spend so much time in development that they're really not quite ready for delivery when they start getting the sales and people coming in, their products are going out the door. So they
Hmm.
have to scramble to get that ready. Or their pipeline is so full, all they're doing is delivery, and they're not thinking enough about their development process and keeping their pipelines full.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're stuck and they're empty. So that's the pace, the TikTok rhythms. The perception is along innovation, and then profit is the financial for the business side. And so this particular assessment analyzes both life and the business as a leader in the business. So this probably works better with someone who has charge of the capacity to change the culture of the company more
Got it.
than, and some managers still have that capacity. The executive leader, the owner, CEO level is ideal, but anyone can benefit from it. And then so there's 25 questions on the life personal side, 25 questions on the professional. And then the same thing, it gives you real-time results of where is your company and organization in relation to God's order priority. These priorities are still the same. And you got to get the purpose first. I exist to glorify God. I
Hmm.
exist to be on mission with Him. And what's my why and my mission and so on, and values, how I'm going to operate. But then people is next. You can't have business without people. So how do you really, there's a war for talent. How do you find the best talent, attract them, keep them, engage them? So there's 31. So the cool results of this, it gives you results in real time. And again, there's 5 different PDFs. There's 6 lessons under each of these 5 Ps. and 31 we call them 31 snackable videos that they can watch, 3 to 6, 7 minutes long max on each of so there's 5 lessons at each of the 5 pieces. So there's 30 lessons altogether. But if someone were to go through that, you would hit every aspect of your business you can think of. And so we've done it with teams, we've done it in peer advisory group settings with business owners collectively working on it together. I've done it one on one with people, and the results has just been really phenomenal.
Dan, I got to tell you, this is powerful. As you were describing even the prioritized leader, and I bet you've probably seen this play out multiple times. I don't see how you don't take both, especially
Yeah,
especially if you're that kind of culture
a
setter
lot of
in your
times we do. Yeah,
organization. Yeah, because just
a
my
lot of times we do.
takeaway, spiritual, relational, physical, intellectual, financial on the C's in terms of the capital, but then purpose, people, pace, perception, and profit. Those 10 areas, how can you not? It just seems
Yeah,
like a no-brainer. I'm sure it's easy. Once they
yeah,
do one, it's hey, where's the other one at?
exactly, exactly.
Well, Dan, before we go, and folks, I don't know about you, but if you are looking for something to take you to the next level, I would definitely get in touch with Dan. And that's where we're going next. Not just Dan, your contact info, but obviously assessments aren't the only thing that you do. So talk to us briefly about the other types of value that you bring to organizations that come alongside the coaching and the
Yeah.
assessments, and then what would be the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to share that because we're unpacking more in depth just a couple assessments. But first of all, on the coaching side of things, like I've shared with you before, is myself and my team, we've coached people from startups to CEOs of $8 billion companies. So we've got a lot of different experiences in different industries we've worked with. And we do 360 evaluation reviews. We do strategic intensives. We do next level leader training for your executive leaders or those managers to grow all the soft skills of a leader. A lot of time now, all the emerging leaders are coming on the scene, and a lot of times they're given an assignment. They don't know basic leadership skills to how to fulfill their assignments well. So we help with that as well. So that's on the coaching side. But then with Kingdom Way and FCCI, we have inspiring events that incite and outfit people on a local level here in Northern Colorado and Denver. If you're locally here and listening in, we'd love to connect with you, invite you face to face for some events we have every single month, and then 3 big events we do. And then FCCI is Fellowship of Companies for Christ International. And every year, this is just for CEOs and business owners that are faith-driven entrepreneurs. We have a conference where, like, we have, speaking of coaches, Daniel Harkavy is one of our keynotes
Mm-hmm.
for this year in September. He's coming, and 10th Avenue North is our worship band guest
Oh,
for this
very
year.
cool.
So that's in September, and that's September, middle of September in Sarasota, Florida. So there's some of the events. And then one thing I want to end with this because this is the newest thing we're working on that I'm really excited about. And I know I'm going to just target the men here in the call right now because never in my lifetime has there been such a challenge for men to lead their companies well and their families well. And I've worked with men just even today who two people I was coaching that are just reeling from unbelievable life events, and some that
Mm.
are on the verge of suicide because they're existing in isolation. And then even if they have things going well, they're not doing in life together in camaraderie with other men. So we've rolled out a brand new thing called Banded for Men. And
Mm.
we've got 12 themes that we believe really brings transformation to a man's life. And we're doing half day peer advisory groups in Northern Colorado, Denver. We've got 10 cities where a guide has been trained already. And there's nothing in the market like this where it's a deep dive spiritually discipleship for men, but also to work on the business and processing business issues. So if you go to our website, which we'll talk about in a second, could see all those things. And then lastly, if you need a speaker for an event, I'd love to come and share. Got tons of topics. So that's just another thing we'd love to serve you if you're interested in that.
Love it, Dan. Folks, as you can
Yeah.
see, the assessments are just the tip of the spear, just the tip. And then, Dan, your work with FCCI, Kingdom Way, what websites can people go to find you?
Yeah. our website is pretty simple. It's Kingdom Way Ministries.
Okay.
Dot net, not com, dot net, kingdomwayministries.net. And on there, you can see what we do. You can see coaching and different things we do, speaking. And there's a tab on there for Banded for Men as well. You can also check out joinbanded.com. That's the website for the men's. That's the national website. So if you're interested in being a guide, we're training guides, or if you're interested in finding a group. And then the other one, I know it's a little confusing. So FCCI.org is the one where you can find information about the annual conference so we're actually Kingdom Way is a division of FCCI. We've merged together, but we've just kept the Kingdom Way brand. So those three websites, kingdomwayministries.net, joinbanded.com, and fcci.org.
I love it. Folks, you've heard it directly from the man himself. Dan, this was a lot of fun. We're going to have to do this another time. You almost had me nerding out on the assessments because the 5 C's, the 5 P's, come on. That was really powerful for me. And I know it was for those of you listening. So, Dan, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us for a tools and resources episode here on the Fortified Life podcast.
Yeah, and hey, let everybody give it up for Jason, man. Isn't he doing an amazing job? What a gift he is to our world. So thank you, buddy, for what you do.
Absolutely, you're far too kind, Dan. Folks, that wraps us up for this episode. We'll have all of Dan's information in the show notes, jerichoforce.com/podcast or fortifiedlifepodcast.com. You can find all the links. Trust me, you will get your 5 C's and your 5 P's. You'll know you know exactly how to get to them. And then even the conference that Dan mentioned later on this year. Make sure, if you're part of our YouTube audience, to share and subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Fortified Life. If you want to actually see the interview, if you just want to listen while working out or cooking or whatever it is, you can find us on your podcast platform of choice, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, pretty much everywhere. And make sure you leave a positive review because that helps us out with the SEO as people are finding out what God is doing on this show and to find all of our guests and all the things that they're doing. Folks, you know how we leave things. Don't compartmentalize your faith in the
Mhm,
marketplace. And from the
mhm.
boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. This has been a tools and resources episode here on the Fortified Life podcast. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life.